I think we can start with Clark because it's the most recent one. Um, he's the most recent guy to go. We have to hand it to him. He's looked a lot better of late. Just the stuff has ticked up a little bit. I didn't get to watch all of the game against the Mariners. However, I like turned my phone on because I was playing midweek. So I turned my phone on to, yes, on the drive back home at like 11:30, and I'm pretty much catching his last full inning, which is the fifth or like the last out of that inning, and it was him striking out J-Rod, and his stuff looked sharp. Like he threw probably one of the like sharpest sliders that I've seen him throw in a long time. Um, so that immediately just raised my eyebrows, and I was like, okay, he's got a good chance to maybe secure a five spot now in the rotation once Rodon is healthy. Like there's a good possibility that he'll at least stick around for a little bit or be like a swing man. Um, he's really settling into being a starter, so that's kind of putting a lot of the talks about him not really panning out as a starter and definitely being more of a relief arm to rest. So it is really encouraging to see that out of him. Um, the whole Sevy thing is very curious to me. I think we're kind of in the same boat there. Although I will say, like, the velocity is definitely something to watch out for because I think his first two starts, he was sitting around 97 to 98, and then he was down to 95
Yeah.
in his last start, which
And just
is
not executing.
not executing, leaving pitches right over the center of the plate flat. He caught as many barrels as I've ever seen Sevy catch in his career. Um, that's something to keep an eye on. I don't know if it's an injury issue or what it is. He's denied that being an injury problem. He says it's tipping. I really hope it is, but tipping also doesn't fully negate having issues with your velocity dip. So I don't know. I need to see more out of him this upcoming start. I think
Yeah, it
that's
really concerned me because that it seems like a mechanical thing where when you're throwing that much slower, that's the difference in the location. If you think you're throwing harder and you're used to throwing harder and aiming at a spot, you're going to miss it low if you're throwing slower. Like
yeah.
that is something that is mechanical. And I know he had an injury back and forth. Was was it with Boone uh in the Padres series where Boone went out
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
he threw like a ball to the backstop? A little bit concerned given that too, and he ended up finishing that inning.
Yeah, he's very hard nosed. He's always kind of been like that rough around the edges character where he just wants to stay on the mound and like do his thing, which like I respect that out of him, but also who knows how transparent he is when it comes to telling his coaching staff how he's feeling. I do remember that pitch, like he's just straight up airmailed one, kind of was on his knees for a second, and you could easily chalk that up to being like, oh, he's just contemplating why did I throw that pitch so poorly? Why didn't I follow through? Like the ball could have just slipped out of his hand early, or it could have been that lad acting up again. Like he has so many prior injuries to worry about and just to keep in the back of your mind that it kind of I try to stay ignorant with it honestly because I otherwise I just get myself too worried, which is not a way that you want to feel about one of your aces in the first place. Um, and then I guess leading into the whole conversation with Cole,
Well, can I circle back to Clark real quick?
yeah, go for it.
So, I mean, Clark was awesome. I mean, he's had the best starting pitcher ERA over the last stretch, 2.15 ERA, which is really impressive. The thing with Clark that I am both impressed and concerned by, his FIP was a 4.15. That's a 2-run difference over that same stretch that we're looking at of 4 games started. And part of that is because he's given up by far the most hits of any Yankees pitcher. Garrett Cole has a 4.5 ERA over that stretch, giving up 8 hits. Clark has given up 14 hits, one more start, granted, but still, 2 home runs. It seems like he's always in trouble. And you go through a Clark start, and it's like, oh, looking back, that was a pretty good 2 runs, 6 innings. But three of the innings, he had runners in scoring position. If and runs didn't score, let alone the innings where he gives up runs. So he's looked better. He's been able to fight through his stuff plays, like his strikeouts are there. He has more strikeouts this year than Lucas Giolito.
Yeah.
That was a stat that came up on the board yesterday, which was super interesting. So yeah, I agree with you that he's solidified that fifth spot for now, especially where we're at with our pitching injuries. But I think it's something to keep an eye on, that the projected stats, for whatever they're worth in this small sample, aren't looking at him that favorably because he's still giving up base runners. They're just not scoring.
Yeah, no, I mean he's just never been that really like dominant pitcher. Like his good outings are still not dominant. And there's like a difference between the two.
Yeah.
Like you never feel like the other team is fully out of it with him. Like you're kind of holding your breath the entire time. Um, I guess that's where I lead into Cole a little bit. It feels like earlier this month or like last month he was having issues with just what he had issues with last year, which was leaving pitches over the middle of the plate and getting hit for home runs. He went how many starts without giving a home run, and then he went on an onslaught of just giving up long balls constantly, is what it felt like. And
This is
that's where
like
most of his runs are coming from. It's not like he's getting hit a ton necessarily, but when he is getting hit, they're typically leaving the park. Um, so that's definitely concerning, but it's not something that I'm like concerned about with his health or his long-term health or if he can turn it around or not. Like I think he's adaptable enough at this point to make it work and get back to form. And he did have a good start his last time out against LA. So I'm not all that concerned, but at the same time, it's like you're our ace. You need to do a little bit better than that.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting 2 months with Cole. I mean, we were looking super happy at everything that he was doing in the month of April, and now it's kind of just been average. He still fights. He's been grinding, but he's grinding a lot more than we would want him to, if we're being honest, right?
Yeah.
So, we want to see that number one dominance because I think we've lost that. You know, Nestor has just not been good. And it's been really damaging. Uh, Having Cole get hit, giving up home runs at a much higher rate out of nowhere. Let me look at the home run numbers real quick. Home runs per nine, still not too bad. Well, relative, not great. 1.7 home runs per nine in his last three starts, which is that's two home runs a game, and that's
Yeah.
just the difference of, a 7 inning 1 run outing to a 6 inning 3-4 run outing,
Mhm.
which is what we seem to be getting from Cole these days. But the offense has been picking it up. But that's my, I know this is a much more negative podcast than I anticipated given the recent Yankees run, but I think there's a lot of things that lead to the Yankees not being as good as they've been. Um, but we're sitting here in third place and we're sixth in the AL and we're comfortably in a playoff spot right now. But I think we need Cole to come back a bit, to get us rolling up the division. Can we catch Tampa? I think so, but we're gonna have to be playing on similar runs than what we've gone on the last month.
Yeah. Also have to give credit to Domingo for being as solid as he's been the last few starts, like since he's gotten back from the suspension list. Um, that start against the Dodgers was amazing. I mean, he
Yeah.
was missing barrels constantly. His curveball, like it's one of those things where if you like look at the body of work within that game, the amount of pitchers that he just or the amount of like elite hitters that he just completely owned for the most part. Like Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts like had no shot against him. And very few pitchers can say that they have those guys' numbers. You know what I mean? Like he was so dominant that it looked like they were going to be out of each of those ABs in like 4 to 5 pitches. And they had no shot at actually squaring something up. Um, he did leave that slider over the plate to JD. That was his one big mistake, but the Yankees picked him up with their offense again. So that was nice to see. But yeah, we're going to have to see Rodon back sooner than later because Garrett Cole needs help at the top. I don't know if the whole Nestor effect issue is like him kind of being exposed for not going 7 to 8 innings last year a lot. You know, like I feel like last season he was having 5 or 6 really good outings per or 5 or 6 really good innings per outing rather than actually just like going the distance. And this year they were like, well, let's see if we can stretch you out a little bit more. And that third time through the lineup now, teams are just kind of figuring him out. And he's also getting fatigued on top of that. So it's just a recipe for disaster. But yeah, they definitely need more reinforcements coming in because you can't fully depend on him anymore.
In a third time through the order this year, and I actually just brought up that stat to compare Nestor and Domingo, and give Domingo some props. Nestor has gone 9 innings worth of third time through the order, an opponent batting average of 450. Home runs per nine at 6.8 home runs per nine. So Nestor just getting that depth,
Yeah.
and giving up bombs, and he's striking out hitters there. It's only been 9 innings, but still, like we've seen that, and that kind of matches the eye test where like Nestor goes 5 strong, and you're like, oh, Nestor's looking good, and he's at 70, 75 pitches. And Nestor Cortez is a guy who you're looking to give you 85 to 100 pitches. That's
Mm,
that's the credit that he's built up with the Yankees over the past 2 years, and he's a solidified starting pitcher. But if you look at the guy who's really been that number two to give length, I mean, Garrett Cole has gone 20 innings against the third time through the order, which is going to be the highest amongst the highest, if not the highest in baseball.
yeah.
Domingo Herman, and part of this is a skewed sample because Domingo doesn't have that credit. So like when Domingo's off his game, he gets hooked after 5. He doesn't go the third time through. And when he's good, he's gotten that leash. This year, when he's gotten that leash, he's been productive. He's on 12.2 innings against the third time through, opponent batting average of 196, a whip of 0.95. He has a strikeout percentage of 24% against these guys and only 2 home runs given up.
It's really good. It's
It's
really good.
really, really good. So Domingo is the guy who's been giving that length, and it kind of comes unpredictably, it seems like, where we get a Domingo start that's like, whoa, where did that come from? Like that was when he went 8 1/3, no hit, or I think he was perfect for a while, right?
Yeah.
Um, it was when this last start against the Dodgers are obviously giving that um big time through, but shout out to Nestor. But you look at sorry, shout out to Domingo for that, but you look at Nestor, you look at Clark even, you get to that third time through, it's a noticeable drop off, which is every pitcher in baseball. But Nestor, it's been a lot more than a top end pitcher that you need, to the point where he can't, like, we have to hook him after 4 2/3 if he's facing a third time through, which
Yeah.
which is just something that's really detrimental to the bullpen, which has been solid. But Domingo, we got on him for screwing the Yankees over, screwing over the bullpen. I mean, on the back end when he's throwing and when he's not suspended, he's been saving the bullpen. So I got to give him his props there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we got to get into the bullpen just real quick and talk about how effective they have all been. Best bullpen ERA in the league.
Yep.
Really cool to see that. Clay Holmes looks like Clay Holmes again, like the good Clay Holmes too. He's getting the proper depth on his two-seamer. His sinker is sinking hard. He's missing barrels. I think he was probably the best reliever in all of baseball, maybe for the last month or so, which is crazy to say, but he's on a tear. Um, Tommy Kahnle made his return as well. His changeup looks great. I love that pitch. I love him. It's also just nice to have him back with the team and fully operational again. Um, Mike King is still one of the best to do it. He looks fantastic. Probably the most versatile pitcher that they have in the bullpen right now, and honestly the most important piece. Just because he's kind of like the glue guy out there. No signs of his injury from last season like weighing him down at all. Wandy's been Wandy. He's had like maybe a few miscues for the like here and there, but like for the most part, he's been nails. Ron, I'm a little concerned about. I think that he's had a few outings now where he's been hit up quite a bit. So that's something to maybe look into a little bit more later on. But yeah, that's something to keep an eye on. He's still very young, so we have to keep that in mind. But for the most part, this bullpen has been stellar.
Clay Holmes last 30 days, 13 games, which is a high usage rate, 0.68 ERA, 18 strikeouts, and an opponent batting average of 167. Ron Marinaccio, 12 games, 54 total bases given up, a 7 ERA. So
Yeah, not good.
it aligns with what you just said there. But the Yankees, I mean, between Cordero, Albert Abreu, even Clay Holmes, Wandy's been down a bit. They've been putting together really awesome performances, and have been the backbone of this Yankees win streak for a little while.